Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to go through a recent capability announced in public preview at Build last week. That's service groups in Azure. So let's discuss the what and the why. It's worth noting that this is a limited public preview, so the capabilities will change and grow with this new concept capabilities and based on feedback. So for those who don't know me, my name is Luke Murray. I'm the Infrastructure Security and Modern Workplace Service Lead at HSO in APAC, Microsoft Learn Expert and Microsoft Azure MVP based in Hamilton, New Zealand. So feel free to reach out, connect, like and subscribe. Let me know what more content that you want to see more or less of, and let's get started. So you're running workloads on Azure or you're thinking about it, then governance is probably top of mind. So how do we empower our developers, our application teams to keep control but still move fast? So let's talk about some of the core governance services that Azure offers, what's working well, and potentially what might still be missing. So the first one is Azure Policy. So this is your automated compliance and governance engine. So with Azure Policy, you can enforce your organization and standards, your auditability, configuration, and just make sure that every resource deployed within your Azure ecosystem is following your rules automatically. It's essentially like having a security and compliance team working 24/7 in the background. So there's Azure Policy, essentially it's the Make It So engine. Then we have Azure Resource Graph. So that's about visualizing and querying your estate. So Azure Resource Graph provides real-time inventory and lightning fast querying across all your resources, from hunting down shadow IT to getting compliant insights. It's really about your go-to for visibility of your workloads. Then we have tags. So keeping track of everything. Tags kind of make it simple as a key value pair, whether it's by resources based on your project, who owns it, the environment such as dev, test, prod, or cost center. Tags are really how you organize and slice your resources however you may need. And usually you would use tags, especially around project billing, for example, as well, or who owns what resource. Then you have your management group structure. So if your organization has dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of subscriptions, management groups are really a lifesaver because they help you organize that subscription hierarchy, apply your policies across vast portions of your environment, and keep your cloud manageable. So these tools all come together to form the backbone of your modern cloud governance, and they're really powerful. But let's be honest, as cloud adoption grows, so does the complexity. Applications now span multiple resource types, multiple resource groups, and subscriptions, shared services, microservices, reorganizations. It all makes real-world service management a challenge. So what if we wanted to see the entire application regardless of what subscription it's sitting on or what type of resource it is? What if we need to group our resources for billing, security, or monitoring outside of these traditional management group or resource group hierarchy? How do we build a view that reflects the way that our business, teams, or services are actually structured, not just how Azure happens to lay things out? So if you've tried to use tags for this or wrangled complicated hierarchies, like I know a lot of organizations essentially try to do management groups for this, then you already know it can get quite messy very fast. So maybe it's time for a new kind of Azure group, one that isn't confined by deployment boundaries, one that lets you aggregate your resources across your entire cloud estate, whether it's by application, service, or whatever matters to you. So before we go into service groups, I just want to touch more about the problem it's trying to solve. So let's talk about a real world challenge here that teams are facing when trying to operate in the cloud at scale. So it doesn't matter if you're a small team or a global enterprise, the complexity skyrockets as soon as you have dozens of hundreds of cloud resources spread across different subscriptions, regions, and teams. So let's look at who's involved and what's on their minds. So first we have the architecture team or component. So they want the resource hierarchy to align perfectly with the application environment, production, non-prod, the criticality of the system, and so on. Then we have the security persona. So they need to limit access across subscriptions to reduce risk while making sure that every resource is treated the right way for compliance. Then we have the cloud operations team. So they're thinking about the big picture, or the platform team. They have strict requirements on how the resources are organized, tagged to make inventory and management possible. Then we have our cost operations or FinOps team. So they need clear, detailed reports asking what's the total cost of the application across all these scattered resources. And of course, countless other roles each have their own requirements and requests. But what happens to the developer lead? Where are they at the center of this, wondering, how do I actually manage my application when it's stretched across so many resources and boundaries? How do I see the big picture without juggling naming conventions, tags, endless spreadsheets? Each team's needs is essential, but often their requirements end up pulling more complexity into the applications, not less, and let's be honest, trying to pull together an end-to-end view or meet everyone's policy, resilience, cost, security, and reporting can feel almost impossible. So the question then is, how do we simplify this management, bring clarity, control for everyone across this tangled landscape? So this is introducing service groups as a new governance mechanism in the Azure ecosystem. So just to recap, you've got your Azure policy for enforcing compliance, then you've got your resource graph for resource visibility and query capability, then you've got your tags for metadata organization and query, then you've got your management groups for hierarchy, subscription management. And now with service groups, you have a new powerful way to flexibly aggregate and view the information from cross-subscription resources and scopes. So service groups are a game changer for cloud governance, making it easier than ever to organize, manage, and get insights across your entire Azure estate exactly the way you want it. So let's just dive a little bit more into it. So unlike traditional groupings like management groups, subscriptions, or resource groups, service groups enable you to create flexible cross-subscription and hierarchical teams or collections custom fits to your need. So what can you actually do with these service groups? So the answer is almost anything you can imagine. So service groups are designed to support many real-world scenarios, bring flexibility and visibility into the common needs. So you've got your groups, so they're about creating logical collections that reflect your business structure, your project teams, the criticality of the service. Every organization is going to architect their service groups slightly different depending on their needs. You could also architect it by application. So you could aggregate all the resources involved in a single application, even if they're spread across subscriptions or regions, for example, or a service view. So you may want a view of a group of networking resources or storage resources or database resources, and you manage them all as an instance. A common scenario would be workload view. So you'd be grouping your resources around a specific workload or solution for cost management, monitoring, reporting, including the dependencies of what that workload is. So if a workload has a dependency on a shared service like a firewall or an API gateway, you would be able to display that using service groups. So all of these scenarios are enabled through the service group functionality. Think of them as a universal tool for cloud organization, trying to streamline your operations no matter how complex your Azure environment becomes. So it's important to remember that service groups are not a new deployment scope. So they don't change how policy or RBAC inheritance works. Instead, they add a parallel organization lens to let you see, manage, and understand your cloud with a more application or service lens. Bear in mind that this service is still in preview, but it opens up a lot more control and service or application centric capabilities, such as the ability to see the cost of your workload or service and the dependencies, and more as functionality is built out. So let's break down the key features that make service groups special. So first, you have the hierarchy. You can enable multiple branches and trees independently from your formal governance hierarchy. So service groups can support up to 10 levels deep, so you can model your business, service, or app structure exactly how you need it. Then we have flexibility. So you're not limited by Azure deployment boundaries, so membership can span multiple subscriptions, resource groups, or even individual resources. Having the same resource appear in multiple service groups as well for different views or aggregation needs. Then we have potentially the most powerful, which is service groups allow you to aggregate data from all their members, no matter where those resources reside. That means you can view the health, cost, and other important information for your app, workload, or even business unit all at once, regardless of how things are deployed underneath. So service groups are not a deployment boundary. They don't handle policy or RBAC inheritance, but they're designed for minimal privilege, and they can be nested and offer flexible membership. This means you can group together resources or resource groups, even subscriptions as needed, no matter how your environment is managed automatically through rules. So groups and subscriptions can provide a deployment scope. Groups and subscriptions provide deployment scopes, so they enforce things like your policy and your RBAC, and they have high privilege, but they lack flexibility in the membership because the memberships of those resources, so subscriptions and groups, are fixed. And you can't really nest resources in the way that you may need for some of your business use. Resource groups are also deployment and management units, but again, their membership and their structure is rigid. So service groups allow you to kind of move away from that deployment hierarchy a bit and allow you to be able to have a view of your resources from an application or a service lens and be able to affect changes at that level. So let's take a look at an example. So this is an enterprise claims application. So at the top we have shared services like firewall, DNS, express route connectivity, Enter ID that's used organization wide. Then in the middle we can see our claims application. Notice that even this single application is made up of many different resources, application gateways, load balancers, web servers, application service, database, storage accounts, key vaults. These resources might be spread across multiple subscriptions and managed by multiple different teams. Some are unique to the application, while others like Service Bus or Redis Cache might be shared between other solutions as well. Then at the bottom we have common management services like backup, vaults, monitoring, and insights that all just support your workloads. So with so many different pieces, different roles and organization boundaries involved, it can become very difficult to answer questions such as what changes have been made? How do you get a complete view? How do you track the costs, the health, or the ownership of this one application when it touches so many boundaries and services? So we're going to take a look at a demo of service groups. So in this case, we've got Contoso as an organization. So Contoso's mission is to leverage the new groups called service groups that will allow them to model their internal application catalog in Azure. So this video was pre-recorded as part of a demo at Microsoft Build. Let's take a look at this. So here we're creating a new service group called Backend Applications. A new group has been created, so this is going to be underneath the Claims Application service group. So we're going to add members to this Backend Application service group. So we're going to select Resource Group. And this touches a bit on the dynamic hierarchy that I pointed to earlier, where you don't need to do a one-to-one relationship. You can, for example, select a subscription or a resource group and it will automatically pull those into the service group. Then in this case, we're able to select filter, for example, based on a cost or a tag, and then automatically add those in as well. So in order to make use of service groups, you don't need to manage them directly within the service group scope. You can use things like tags, your current resource deployment hierarchy to kind of control where you're putting things as well. So in this case, we've got our service group and our entities within that, and we're able to see the health state of all those resources within this model. And so here we can see the claims health application or service group, and then all the dependent resources within that, and we can now see the health state of that. And we can go up to multiple different levels within the service groups. Then we can see the members of the claims applications and all the resources that reside inside of that. So hopefully this is giving you a really great understanding of what the service groups can do. More of the application lens on being able to bring in those resources, view the health, view the backup state, view the cost in an application service group lens, look at your shared resource dependencies, map it out, being able to understand the impact of the changes you're potentially making, the life cycle of your applications or services as well. You may be able to go, oh, we're replacing this service or this workload with this workload. What makes up that workload? Let's start to use a pattern like strangle a fig, for example, and architect side by side. You could have different deployment stamps and different service groups. It's really up to you on how you want to manage that. So this video is looping, however. Just to recap again, like it is in a limited public preview, but make sure you sign up and offer your feedback through to the Microsoft product teams. I personally feel this is great functionality that we have been missing. The ability to go in, especially from a consultant's lens, into an organization and go, what workloads are you running, who supports it, what is the criticality of that service, has been missing a lot. And now we have that capability built straight into the platform that we can make use of. So put in the comments your thoughts, what you're looking forward to using service groups for, or what you want to use them for. Make sure you sign up. Hopefully this has given you an indication of where service groups play and some of the capabilities that you can use to leverage. Thank you.